Hi, this is Igor from hdhead.com, and in this short tutorial we're going to learn how to bring Red Camera dailies into Avid Media Composer using a new free application called Avid Metafuze. I already have Metafuze started in the computer. I'm just going to switch to it. This is the initial screen that you see once you launch Metafuze. One important thing to say is that Metafuze is a free software available for download from avid.com/Metafuze. You need at least version 1.3 to be able to do what I'm going to do in this tutorial. Metafuze was originally created by Avid to facilitate file-based workflows where you have sequential files as sources such as DPX or Cineon files coming off a film scanner. Recently, Red support was added to Metafuze, and the way Metafuze works is it will take the files, whether those are the Red files or sequential files, and transcode them into Avid MXF media that can be loaded into Media Composer. Let's get started. We go to Actions menu, Scan Folders, also accessible with Control F on the keyboard. This opens up the dialog box that we use to locate our Red files. On the left side we have available folders, and I'm going to navigate down to Red. I'll double click into this thing so you can see what's inside. There are 8 individual folders in here. Each one of these holds a clip, and you may be familiar with how Red Camera organizes files. Let's look at it here in Windows Explorer. Each one of these folders has the R3D clip and the associated QuickTime movies, the proxy files that belong to the clip. So if I click into any one of these, they all have the same structure. What they differ in is the actual file name. So back to Metafuze, we can add individual clips by selecting any of these. We can pick and choose which ones we want, or we can go one level up, select the root folder, and transfer that into the selected paths. And make sure that here under Options, Include Subfolders is checked. So this will scan through all of these paths and pick everything that's underneath this directory. One important thing is to go to File Types and make sure that R3D is the only file type that Metafuze is going to scan. So make sure everything else is deselected, because if you don't, Metafuze will scan QuickTime files. So we don't want that. So we'll just select R3D, OK, and click on Scan. Here's what Metafuze found. Metafuze is very straightforward and very easy to use, but before we start with that, I just want to show you how to customize the views. Any of these lines can be moved up or down to resize the areas. We can move this one to the right to see all the column headings. Move it to the left to see more of the file detail. If you resize this entire window, you can tear off detail view, for example, or the group view, and park it on your desktop or even on a second monitor. You can put it back here and work with 2 tabs for group and detail, or you can when you drag it back, see how the little area opens up on the right. If you drop it in there, it will squeeze itself right in there. So same thing applies to the views up here. If we move the line to the left, we can resize the view on the left, and so forth. The view on the left, by the way, is a linear light representation of your R3D file, and the view on the right is a gamma corrected view that's closer to what you're going to get with your final color of in Media Composer for your offline. Let's look at the group view on the left. I'm going to move this line so we see all of the columns that we have selected. All the information available for each one of these clips, one line is one clip, comes from the detail view from the right hand side. The columns can be organized by clicking on Add Remove Columns, and this is very similar to what you all know from Media Composer's headings. All of the selected ones are available down here, and I have made this sort of Red specific column category and saved it as a column preset called Red. But let's customize that. Let's select all of these and click on OK. I'm going to save this preset and call it All. Looking here on the left, it's a much wider view now, but some of the data that's supposed to go in these columns just does not exist, so it makes no sense for us to work this way. So I'm going to go back to our Red preset, make this a little cleaner. And as in Media Composer, you can customize this further by sliding columns left and right, putting it any way you want. On the right in Detail view, we have settings that are very similar to what you know from other Red applications. Things like debearing quality, OLPF, ISO speed setting, resolution, and so forth. For offline purposes, for preparation of dailies for Media Composer, the main thing is that we don't want to spend too much time processing these dailies, so full premium resolution is probably going to be an overkill. So I'm going to switch this down to 8 good, which will be significantly faster to process. If we look here on the left, for our first clip in this series, it's selected as 8 good, but all the others are full premium. Well, how can we do it globally? Simply go Control A, select all the clips, or you can also Shift select, go down here, select 8 good, and now all of our clips are set with this common setting. The next thing I'm going to do is, this footage was underexposed, so the ISO speed, if you look at the speeds here, the first clip is 320 and then the rest are 500. I'm going to take a wild guess and really push this to 800. For offline purposes, you want to keep debearing quality in low. The options are low, medium, and high, and OLPF always off for speed of processing. A couple other cool things you can do. You can create burn-ins. So for example, if I select the first clip, click down here on Burnin, here's a burn-in dialog window. Any of the categories from our columns can be placed in here as a burn-in. So for example, timecode is going to pop on the screen in a second. Timecode burn-in. You can change the position, size, font, and all that sort of stuff. Not just timecode, but you can put a lot of other stuff. Here's, for example, debearing quality if you need to have that information burnt into the clips. Earlier, I've created a red preset for myself, which I'm going to import. And here's red plus timecode XML, and we'll close this. So what I'm going to do is, here in the group view, I'll go Control A again to select all the clips, and click here on the right side on Burnin, and make sure that all of the clips have red plus timecode applied to them. So now all of my clips have the same timecode burn-in setup. If I uncollapse the clip information, we actually see the file that's associated with this clip. And the way Metafuze works is, for each one of these files you have to create what they call a transcode. So I'm going to click New Transcode. It's designated with a little icon that looks like a videotape. Here on the right we have the settings for that transcode. The folder where these files are going to go is now set up to the default path, which is my documents and settings and my folder. But I don't necessarily want my files to go there, so I can click on the folder, navigate to my Avid media files, and put this in a folder we're going to number 2. Open. So here it is. Now, if we were to transcode this file, that's where the MXF media would go. But as you can see, none of the other ones have that. So what we do is we shift select all these clips, click on New Transcode. So now each one of these clips has associated transcode with it. And all of these transcodes will go into the Avid Media Files MXF folder /2. One other thing is the format. You have 2 choices for formats. 1080 2397p or 720 2397p. So it's up to you, depending on what your production is using for offline, to select one of those 2 choices. One quick glance to make sure everything is set in a uniform fashion. 800 ISO speed, 8 good resolution, debearing's off, OLPF is off, and it looks like we're ready to transcode. In order to do that, we have to select all these individual transcodes. Now, this would be quite a process if you had to do it for a whole reel of a feature film or a full day of dailies. So what you do is you go to Actions menu, select all transcodes, which is also available as Control-Shift-A, and click on Transcode button. And Metafuze is now transcoding the files. The material for this little demo was originated in Red 4K, and as you can see, we're going to 1080 2398p. And for compression, we're using DNX HD36. Here are the other options. You can go with 175 and 115, or you can go uncompressed. DNX HD36 is a good choice for offline. The picture is a little rough. It will actually be more rough with our 8 good setting, but it's probably decent enough for offline. What you should do is you should definitely check with your production that these settings will be acceptable. And one last thing we can do after the transcoding is finished, or even before we start, is to export an ALE file for Avid Media Composer. Now, this is not a requirement, but it does make things easier when you bring in material into Media Composer. To create an ALE, you have to select all the clips that you want to have included in the ALE, and in this case we'll select all of them by holding Control-Shift-A, and we'll click on Export ALE. This is my desktop actually. Let's call this MF to MC test. Save it. ALE is a simple text file that has all of our 8 clips listed here with all the corresponding metadata that we'll bring into Media Composer. What you just saw is all you have to do in Metafuze to create dailies for Media Composer from red files. There are some other things in Metafuze that we didn't go over, but we couldn't get to that in the scope of this short demo, and although those are important features, they're not essential for the most basic use of Metafuze. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring these files into Media Composer, so you'll see the final step of the process. In Media Composer, we'll create a new project, call it MF to MC, and we'll make sure that the format settings are the same as the red files that we encoded in Metafuze, so 1080, 2390, 76p. I'll right mouse click on the bin, select import. We'll find the ALE that we created in Metafuze. Here it is, MF to MC test ALE. Click on OK, and all of our master clips are in the bin. However, the media is still not connected. It says media offline. So what we have to do is we have to select all the clips in the bin, right mouse click, select relink, and I'm going to switch to my media drive G, and I'm also going to uncheck relink to media from current project only. This is it. This is how you import red files into Media Composer using Metafuze. To recap, we used Metafuze 1.3, and we have also used Media Composer 3.5, although Media Composer 3.1 will work as well. However, if you intend to output an EDL from 3.1, you will have to download Red 16 template for EDL from avid.com/red. If you need to learn more about Red workflows, a couple of good places to start your research are reduser.net and hdhead.com. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and this is Igor from hdhead.com.